Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The German heavyweight contender Agit Kabayel, who's currently at 19-0, will face Mariusz Wach on a card on March the 28th in Magdeburg. This is an SES promoted event. It's an opportunity as well for Kabayel to build off his past couple of years that have been a little bit quiet, but there's a chance as well to sort of upstage Dillian Whyte to some extent, who fought Mariusz Wach just a few months ago in December 2019. Didn't look that great. He was a career heaviest against Wach, and Wach was winning some rounds and very competitive in that fight. Heading into it, most boxing fans on Mariusz Wach's previous form, he's racked up a number of losses in recent years, thought that Whyte would still win and not really have too many issues, but Whyte made it so much harder for himself. Ultimately, some boxing fans still believing, well, maybe Mariusz Wach has got something left. I'm in the sort of opposing camp where I think that, he is all of his 40 years old and has been performing as such in recent years, but Whyte in his condition let Wach into that fight, a fight he really shouldn't have had no place sort of having success in, given what we've seen in recent years. So Agit Kabayel, who's 19-0 heading into this fight, a couple of quiet years in the division since beating Derek Chisora in 2017, and people forget that, and I'll come to that a little bit later, because he outboxed Chisora convincingly. It's an opportunity for him to go in there, look slick, and sort of re-announce himself in a way to the heavyweight division, because he's been flying way under the radar, and he is coming to a point in his career where the rubber is hitting the road. And they obviously realise that SES managing his career, having signed a co-promotional deal with Top Rank. And Kabayel himself was meant to fight in the United States for the first fight on that deal earlier in 2020, but there were some visa issues. So I don't know if that has all been sort of sorted out and cleared up, because he's, as a result of those issues, fighting on this March 28th card, because he'd be campaigning pretty much exclusively from here on out in the United States if he didn't have these visa issues. So that sort of forced him to fight in Germany again. The plans were to have him in the United States, but Mariusz Wach is his first opponent for 2020. Only the one fight in 2019, a very good-looking win over Andrei Rudenko, and in 2017, Derek Chisora. So just a few fights ago, it was Derek Chisora. So he's had a pretty quiet and inactive couple of years for a guy who was at the point where he needed to be really sort of motoring towards the heavyweight title and having some bigger fights, 2-3 fights a year. But for whatever reason, things have conspired against him, and he's just had a couple of fights in the last 2 years. So it's a very good opportunity against an opponent that Dillian Whyte just fought and beat in a 10-round decision for Agit Kabayel to do the same, but effectively look better. And if he does go in there, outbox and outclass Mariusz Wach in the way that I think he will, I think some boxing fans will go, hang on, this guy could actually do something in the heavyweight division. Definitely been flying way under the radar, but I expect him to do a similar sort of number like he did against Andrei Rudenko, where he really boxed Rudenko's socks off. That was about a year or so ago, I think March 2019. He dropped Rudenko in that fight en route to a comfortable points decision. Rudenko didn't really sort of fire too many shots in that fight, and I think it will be the same with Mariusz Wach, who at 40 has racked up a number of losses in recent years. Some of them he hasn't been competitive in. He was bullied by Martin Bakole. Jarrell Miller back in 2017 did a similar sort of number on him. Dillian Whyte and Artis Pilka are really the only ones who've been in competitive fights with Mariusz Wach in recent years, and in Whyte's case, the weight that he was carrying, he was out of shape. That influenced the sort of outcome of that fight being far more competitive. But make no mistake, Mariusz Wach is a husk of what he used to be. Right now, he's a guy that's a former title challenger, some name recognition, and he's got a good chin. But he's not unbeatable, not unstoppable, as Martin Bakole proved a year or so ago. So Agit Kabayel, in my view, he's not going to have too many issues with Mariusz Wach at all. He's going to go in there, use his movement, and he's going to pick him apart. And he's going to work Wach to the body too, knowing that the jaw is going to be pretty impenetrable at times. But later in the fight, if he manages to tire out Mariusz Wach, who knows what could happen. But this one, I would pick to go to a decision. And I guess for Mariusz Wach, after that fight, fight against Dillian Whyte, it's boosted his stock to some extent and made it viable for him to be in a fight with a guy like Agit Kabayel. Because if Whyte had blasted Mariusz Wach out in 1 or 2 rounds, for example, Agit Kabayel would not be fighting him on March the 28th. And for me, this is just a high-level tune-up of sorts for Kabayel. But in terms of Mariusz Wach, I'm glad that he's getting another opportunity for a payday, but also because he's recently just had a full training camp. He thought he was going to be facing Joseph Parker. He was one of a number of guys that was in negotiations for February the 29th against Parker. He even announced that he was going to be fighting Parker. He even traveled to the United States and was sparring with Adam Kovnatsky, and obviously it didn't end up going to him. So it would have been a lot of time, effort, and money wasted, and they would have been looking around looking for other opportunities, and this has clearly popped up. They've liked the offer, they've taken the fight. So I'm glad from Wach's perspective that the sort of disappointment of the Parker fight falling through, because it was never signed from the Parker end to fight Wach, but Wach had agreed his end of the deal, as he put it. It's good for him to get another fight so soon after having this training camp. So we know he's going to be in shape, he's game, but he won't have enough for Agit Kabayel. And I think some people might be surprised at the way that Agit Kabayel will deal with Mariusz Wach, and I'm sure he's going to make it a lot more comfortable than Dillian Whyte did. And people forget that Agit Kabayel did comfortably outbox Derek Chisora a couple of years ago, and he is a guy that is one of the better heavyweights in the world. He is in my top 15 at the back end of that. I think he's that good, but he's flying way under the radar. So if he can fight Wach, get a win, look good, it's good for his reputation, and especially if he goes back to the United States, gets the visa issue sorted, and starts having some good fights in the States. That will be good for him. And then they can obviously use some of the, well, Dillian Whyte made hard work of a Wach win. Agit Kabayel breezed through the fight. It's good for his sort of profile in general. But what do you make of this? Agit Kabayel, Mariusz Wach, 28th of March, Magdeburg, Germany. Drop a comment. Loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.